Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Everyone Unhinged, and we are back for another podcast, another episode, on the Everyone Unhinged channel, and we're back again with Oscar to review the fights that are going on this weekend. We've got a big one, ladies and gentlemen. We have got UFC 316, O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. Should be a good one. Firstly, Oscar, how are you? Connection slow.
I'm very good, man. It's been a while. I'm very happy to be back, and this is a really good card to come back to. Sometimes we found ourselves coming back to these Apex cards, and there's no energy in the room. We all have to lie to ourselves about the card's redeeming qualities. This time around, we don't really have to lie to ourselves.
That's
So,
absolutely correct.
I wouldn't say are the most exciting, but I do think they have the capacity for great moments.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's get straight into it. Then we'll talk about the main event. As I talked about, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley in the main event. It should be a good one over there, obviously live on pay-per-view. We've got two title fights going down this weekend. And I would argue maybe the co-main event is as big as the main event. It's a fantastic fight itself in the co-main event. But we'll talk about we'll talk about the main event first. I meant the co-main event. We'll talk about the main event first. The UFC Bantamweight Championship on the line. Sugar Sean O'Malley looking to regain his throne, get that belt back from Merab Dvalishvili, who defeated him last time out. It was a fantastic fight last time, a close one. Merab was pushed to the limit. Ultimately, it was the grappling, the cardio paying difference, and Sean O'Malley got his title wrestled away from him basically that night. I think Sean O'Malley would have took a lot of positives away from that one. I think if he could have dealt with the cardio with Merab Dvalishvili a lot better, could have went his night. Could have went his way. His defensive grappling was semi-decent as well. He only got took down a few times and held down. I think there was a lot of positive from Sean O'Malley to take from that night. He goes into this one in the rematch against Merab Dvalishvili, who's just come off a win against Umar Nurmagomedov. The hottest man at 135 pounds right now is Merab. Oscar, do you see Sugar Sean getting the belt back, or is it one-way traffic from Merab once again?
I believe Sean O'Malley will be more competitive in this fight, but it will not be enough to defeat Merab Dvalishvili, who I am very confident will beat anybody on this roster on Saturday night. I was thinking Umar was going to be the guy to beat him, but he even beat Umar, out wrestled Umar. I believe that Merab will beat anybody in this division with the style that he has, the style of walking forward, feinting takedowns, and getting them more often than not. He doesn't have to keep guys down. He can just keep on taking them down over and over again, make them tired. And he does have really good success with the striking once those guys are a little tired. And Sean O'Malley, he claims that the bright lights got to him last time around in the sphere. He didn't like the fact that, Marab was able to adapt to better to the circumstances um, with the injuries that Sean O'Malley had. It was uncomfortable for him. So no excuses for Sean O'Malley this time. I expect him to get taken down almost every round, but he will have a couple of rounds, as he did in the first fight, where he lands some good stinging shots on Rob. But we have seen so many times Rob show off his durability. Chief amongst them was the Marlon Moraes fight back in 2021, where he was hurt so bad. The referee could have stopped it, in my opinion, and it would have been fine. But Rob was able to rise from the ashes and defeat Marlon that night. And Sean O'Malley better be careful chasing for the knockdown because that'll give Merab an opportunity to grab those legs and take him to the ground. So the pick here is Merab Dvalishvili by unanimous decision. I think a lot of people are fooling themselves by thinking Sean O'Malley has value as an underdog bet. Merab is the rightful favorite here.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm also going Merab. I think it's pretty of a no-brainer for me in this one. If you look at this one stylistically, I think it's going to be quite a similar one from the first fight. I think it's going to be very competitive early on, but eventually I think Merab breaks his will and eventually takes him down with ease in the third, the fourth, and the fifth round. Merab really is the hottest guy, 135 pounds, as I mentioned, the man to beat. He is putting on a fantastic run of form as late. Umar, Sean O'Malley, looking to regain Sean O'Malley once again. This guy could be considered as one of the best at 135 pounds, if not already. Merab is, as he says there, he's a machine. He never stops and never will. He's a moderate favourite according to Tapology. 34 years of age. And I've got to be honest, I thought when Merab became the champion, I thought this is not going to be a very entertaining reign. But I think he has grown on me. His personality has come out a lot. I think he's a fantastic champion. He's entertaining. I think people look at him and he's like, oh, he's a wrestler. He's boring, but I think he's entertaining. When it comes to fighting, I think he's scrambling. He's entertaining. He likes to put on a performance for the fans. I don't mind Merab as champion. It's a big one for him this weekend. Big one for both of them. As you mentioned, Sean O'Malley, taking the fight at the Sophia and being under the bright lights, and it be too big of a moment probably for him. If he wants to be, he was talking about legacy and being one of the best considered in MMA. This is the sort of fights that will go down on his record that he needs to win. We talked about McGregor before we went on live. McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez, beat Jose Aldo. These are the sort of fights that go down as legacy fights. This one right here is one of the highest of levels that we can think of in MMA. It's a great one. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili, but I do think the pick is Merab. I think he's more technical. I talked about before we went on air as well. The striking of Merab as well, I believe, has come up in leaps and bounds. I think he's more, he's more technical. If you look at his first few fights inside the UFC, it was crazy, but now he's really learnt that game and adopted it really well. I think Umar, he looks really good. I think Umar was a fantastic striker as well as a wrestler. Merab handled him really well. That was his biggest threat, I thought, at 135 pounds. Merab Dvalishvili is a force to be reckoned with. I think this one, it's got to go Merab's way. The only way I see Sean O'Malley winning is he tags him. He tags him early. I think he's got to go one round or bust.
Yeah, something like that would be insane if we were to see it. But as we've seen with Merab, you cannot take for granted that you're going to get a finish against him. If I was Sean O'Malley, I would try to win a tactical decision here, which in the first fight, I only scored one round for him. It was round 5. It was the round where he landed a big kick to the body, and Merab was running away the rest of the fight. So perhaps aim for the body this time around, because Merab to the head, it's really not going to work.
Absolutely agree. In the co-main event, we got another fantastic fight, as good as the main event, I'd argue as well. We got Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison, a fantastic one, 135 pounds for the bantamweight championship as well. This one for me, I remember seeing Kayla Harrison in PSL a few years ago. She's winning these world tournaments. She's winning these $1 million championships. But it was always the question of how well would she do inside the UFC. And she's also, I don't know if you've been watching Embedded, but she also she said she wanted to come to the UFC because she wanted to test herself against the best women in the world. She said that on her UFC debut as well. She's here to compete against the best. And Juliana Pena has that belt. So technically, she is the best 135 pounder in the world right now. And now she has a chance to prove that she is the best at 135 pounds. And against Juliana Pena, this is, for me, quite similar to the main event. I see this going one way, and that's Kayla Harrison. I think she's, if you look at the size differential between these two women, I think it's going to be massive. The back of Kayla Harrison, she is built like a Greek goddess. She is absolutely in different sort of shape. It's incredible. Standing at 5'8", judo Olympic champion. I think she handles Juliana Pena quite easily. I think she's going to be way too strong inside the clinch. I think this is going to be grappling. Juliana Pena is a bit scruffy on the striking. But Kayla Harrison has improved. I think we have seen improvements from Kayla Harrison on the feet, especially in her last fight against Ketlin Vieira. But for me, this one, I think Kayla Harrison has to get inside, get up against the cage, utilize her strength and how strong she'll be inside that, and the physical advantage that she'll have against Juliana Pena, and take it down early. I fancy a submission for Kayla Harrison, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, that is a great pick because if you recall, the last time that Juliana Pena was finished, it was against Jermaine the Rainamy on Fight Island in 2020. She goes for a takedown, gets her neck snatched, from with a guillotine from a Dutch kickboxer and goes to sleep. Before that, she fought Valentina Shevchenko in 2016 and got tapped out with an armbar. So the submission defense is questionable from Juliana Pena. And Kayla Harrison, we know for sure that her armbar, her rear naked choke are very powerful. She's got, as you pointed out, a great physique, very physically strong. A lot of this fight, I think, will take place in the clinch. Kayla Harrison likes to push girls up against the clinch and look for those takedowns. I think Pena is strong enough to defend a couple of takedowns here and there, but in the long run, she will get taken down. She's going to face a lot of damage from the ground and pound, but we know how tough Juliana is. She fought a prime Amanda Nunes and was able to survive for 5 rounds. So I think she's very tough, but you're all tough until you get put in a submission. You either tap, nap, or snap. So something's going to happen, and Kayla Harrison, I think, wins this one by submission in round 3. I am kind of concerned with Kayla Harrison because we know the cut to 135 is very punishing for her. I remember when she fought at 145, she was complaining about the weight cut. We know that this is a big sacrifice for her. This is the first time cutting that extra pound to championship weight. So we could potentially see a scenario where Pena could take over in the later rounds if the weight cut gets to Harrison. But I still think Harrison just has an overwhelming advantage and in skills here. Pena on the feet, perhaps she could have an advantage in effectiveness, but the technique is horrible, man. In her last fight, she was getting pieced up left and right by Pennington. I scored the fight against her, in fact. Pennington inflicted so much damage. You see the Amanda Nunes fights. She's fighting like it's her first boxing class. It's kind of it is very ugly to look at. So I don't think Kayla Harrison has too much to worry about here. She should be this big favorite. 3rd round submission is the pick for Harrison.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kayla gets the submission eventually. You talked about Kayla, fighting 145 pounds, and actually she is a 155 pounder. I think the PFL
Yeah.
created a division just for her to compete in, basically.
Hmm.
And obviously they had Larissa Pacheco and stuff like that, and they had their feud. But yeah, they created a 155 pounder, a women's lightweight division for Kayla Harrison to compete in because she was that big. I do think she looks a lot more slimmer nowadays, obviously competing at 155 pounds, being more in shape. She is absolutely ripped, though. I think she gets her hands on Julia Pena early and gets the submission victory quite quick. I look forward to this one. I think Kayla Harrison puts on a performance and eventually claims what she's been waiting for so long in her MMA career, in her career in general, is that UFC welterweight. I was about to say welterweight, UFC bantamweight championship of the world. I think she wins and then goes on to fight Amanda Nunes later down the line. But that should be a good one to talk about potentially later this year. Next one, we have Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Piper. We got Kelvin Gastelum versus Body Bags. For me, passing of the old, in comes the new. 28-year-old Joe Piper looking to defeat Kelvin Gastelum, who's only 33. That's crazy to think of how long he's been inside the UFC. 13-9 inside the UFC, his record is. And he looks to kind of start a run. The momentum for him is sort of, I don't want to say diminished, but he wants to build up some momentum a little bit. As you can see here, the wins have kind of dried up as of late, but he got a big one against Daniel Rodriguez. Now he looks to beat Joe Piper. The question is, Oscar, does he beat Joe Piper? 28 years young. We have seen glimpses, that what Joe Piper can actually do inside the octagon. Knocking out Marc-Andre Barrier. But in terms of competition, surely Kelvin Gastelum is a levels above Mark there.
Yeah, for Calvin Gastelum, it's quite clear that his best days are behind him. He started out at welterweight, couldn't make the weight, went up to middleweight, was a real contender, fought for the interim belt against Adesanya, gave him the toughest fight of his career. Fight is going in the Hall of Fame next month. That's how good the fight was. So it's a great fight for Kelvin Gastelum if he was still in his prime, but that's not the case anymore. Joe Piper is a guy that is getting closer to his prime now. He learned his lesson against Jack Hermanson when he tired out. He's going to pace himself a little better here. And Kelvin Gastelum is known for that great chin, but there could be a time when we see that chin go away. And Piper has the power to do it. allegedly he hits harder than Francis Ngannou, if you believe that Power Cube and the UFC Performance Institute. And also, Kelvin Gastelum, I think will try to wrestle here, but it's not going to work because Piper is so strong. He has a size advantage, and I think Piper probably goes for takedowns of his own, and he could submit Kelvin. Kelvin has been submitted many times. Jack Hermanson got him. Chris Weidman got him. It's open for Piper, but either way, Piper can win this where he wants. I think he boxes him up on the feet and wins a dominant unanimous decision. Kelvin Gastelum in his last fight against Daniel Rodriguez, he looks so flat out there, man. He got tired in round three when this guy used to be a 5 round fighter. I just didn't see that same hunger in him anymore, and that's sad to see because he's gonna lose this to Piper.
Yeah, I agree. I think Joe Piper gets the win against Kelvin Gastelum. Tough to see because, as you mentioned there, fighting Adesanya in Australia in a big event, putting on an all-time classic, as you mentioned, going on the Hall of Fame. Should be a good one, though. On the main card, Kelvin Gastelum, Joe Piper. But again, I think this is one-way traffic. Another heavy favorite in my eyes, and obviously Tapology's eyes. I think this Joe Piper gets the job done. I would hate to see Kelvin Gastelum knocked out and sort of put in that position. That's not the way I want to see it. I want Joe Piper. Joe Piper is going to win, but I'd love to see Kelvin Gastelum just to get it done. It would be cool to see the old dog get it done. But Joe Piper, I think, is going to be able to walk through the fire and eventually maybe get the stoppage in round three. I'm going for. Kelvin Gastelum is very tough though. Can take a really good shot. Should be a good one on the main card, 185 pounds. We'll talk about the debutant that's happening, the debut of Patchy Mix. My pick of 135 pound champion at the end of the year was Patchy Mix in our championship. The future picks of the champion, that video that we did. And I picked Patchy Mix. It was a kind of a crazy pick. I thought, you know what? He's in a bit of turmoil with the PFL, bit of Bellator, bit of a argy-bargy going on there, looking to get his way out of the contract. I thought, you know what? He's going to end up inside the UFC. With his girlfriend being Tatiana Suarez, I don't think it would be a problem being getting inside the UFC. I think he'd should put in a good word for him. I think the UFC would have his eyes on him straight away, being the champion over there in Bellator. He has defeated some great guys, had some fantastic performances. I think it was a no-brainer for the UFC to bring him straight in, and that's what they did. And he got into a spot against Mario Batista. Something opened up, and he went straight in there. And I think this is a great fight for him to get a win early inside the UFC and put a performance and announce himself. I think he goes in there against Mario Batista and showcases why he's one of the best 135 pounders in the world. I was hot on this guy when I did the pick, and I believe he's going to win. It's going to be a big one for him. I would love to say the biggest test of his career, but he's fought for championships in Bellator against Stotts, Magomed. I think this is a big fight for him. Obviously, it's his UFC debut, but he's been in his championship spotlights. I think he goes in there, showcases his experience in championship fights and wins this fight against Mario Batista, who is no slack. Has taken a lot of criticism after his last few fights, though. I think Patchy Mix goes in there in the spotlight and wins big.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Everybody hates Mario Bautista after he defeated Jose Aldo in a pretty controversial decision there. A lot of people thought that Batista was purely stalling, but Aldo was looking to do damage. I did score the fight for Aldo, kind of hurt. I had an underdog bet on him. But Patchy Mix here has been a very reliable champion for Bellator slash PFL in these last couple of years. I remember when he lost his first title fight in 2020 in Bellator to Juan Archuleta, and since then he's just leveled up incredibly well. He used to be known as kind of a one-dimensional grappler, and he fights Rafion Stotts, which was supposed to be the toughest fight of his career, and he knocks him out with a knee in the first round. So he's very dangerous. Mario Bautista does not have the same caliber of grappling as him, and I see an opportunity for Patchy Mix to get his back here. I'm not certain he'll get the submission because Mario Bautista obviously has been working on that ground game forever. When he fought Demont Blackshear, that was a fight where he got taken down himself as well. So I see an opportunity for Patchy Mix to look to make a statement here, get a submission, and probably call for a title shot for a top five guy. Either way, I see Patchy Mix in the title mix as you predicted. You're muted.
Oh yeah, good point out there. I was keep blowing my nose. I've got some nasal problems, stuff going on. But anyway, yeah, it's good to see Patchy Mix inside the UFC. Bellator champion. He's got that that world caliber experience. I think he goes in there, puts on a fantastic performance. Should be a good one, 135 pounds. Next one, we got a good one at 170 pounds. We've got Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland, two vets. This one, I believe, has all the makings to get, put on performance of the night, fight of the night, whatever you want. Vicente Luque has been in some wild scraps in the past, has sort of tailored it down a little bit. Kevin Holland, always exciting. Coming off the back of a fantastic win at UFC London that I got to see in person, where he submitted, I believe, did he submit? Gunnar Nelson.
No, he won Gunnar Nelson. He beat Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a decision, Unanimous decision against Gunnar Nelson. He needed that one after dropping two losses against Roman Dolidze and the Riddler. Now he's back to winning ways against Vicente Luque, who looks also put on a little bit of momentum after a win over Temba Garimbo. This one, in my eyes, a close one to call. Both guys needing the win. A fantastic matchup, I believe, from the UFC. Really good matchmaking. Should be again to entertain 110 pounds. Oscar, who have you got?
I got Vicente Luque here. I think he's not the same guy we had like 3 years ago when he was getting in these fight of the nights every time, but finishing guys more often than not. He went on like two separate 7-6 fight win streaks. He's great against these unranked guys. It's those ranked guys that really give him problems. Tim Holland is unranked right now. Used to be ranked in the top 10 of middleweight, but for Vicente Luque, there's no question about it. It would not serve him well to just strike in this fight, because we know his durability. They got cracked against Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal hurt him so bad with that uppercut. It gave him a brain hemorrhage, and after that, he fought the former lightweight champion Dos Santos, and that was a fight where we could see him getting hurt on the feet against a guy who's not that big of a puncher. He won that fight with his wrestling mostly. So with Kevin Holland, we always known that his kryptonite is that wrestling. So Kevin Holland has not ever fixed that truly. There's been a couple of fights against lower level wrestlers where he can defend it and go for chokes, but Luque, you're not going to get Luque with his own choke. Luque is the Darce master. He retired Ton Woodley with his Darce choke. So Kevin Holland will be unable to get that submission. I think he ends up on bottom, and Luque rides him out and gets the decision here. But it is entirely possible that we see Kevin Holland knock out Vicente Luque. But I think Luque is going to fight smart here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Vicente Luque gets the job done. 33 as well, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, Kevin Holland being 32. Been inside the UFC for a very long time. I think Vicente Luque gets it done. The silent assassin looking to make it 2 wins back to back. Should be a great one as well. We talked about, before we went on air, this card being stacked from top to bottom. The co-main event, the main event are good, but some fantastic fights on the prelims and the main card, isn't there?
There sure is. We're about to talk about them right now.
Absolutely agree. Next one, 125 pounds, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Joshua Van being the hot prospect, the hot topic at 125 pounds. He looks to continue his run. 23 years of age. This guy is very, very young. A lot to learn. After his loss against Charles Johnson getting knocked out, he's bounced back 3 wins back to back to back. And then most impressive one it was his last time against Ray Tajara, the Japanese undefeated. He took his own. And now he looks to continue his momentum as he takes on Bruno Silva, who is a different challenge. He's a veteran, been inside the UFC for a very long time. He's fought the best of the best, lost to some, beat some of the best, but now he takes on Joshua Van. This is a bit of a step up in competition, I believe, and none that he does deserve. I think Joshua Van goes in there, puts on a fantastic performance. If you look at Bruno Silva, last time out he got knocked out by Manel Cap. I don't think maybe Van has the power of Manel Cap, but I do think he's quicker, the speed, and he's also very technical. I don't think it'll be a one-hit quitter. I think it's going to be a combination sort of finish here. I think Joshua Van puts on the pressure, uses his hands, uses his sharpness, and he finishes Bruno Silva towards the end of the round 3. I think this is going to be a fantastic fight at 125 pounds. Should be a fantastic one. Oscar, who have we got?
I think this is a very easy pick, and there's a reason that Josh Van is such a big favorite. Bruno Silva is a 35-year-old flyweight. That is bad news for any flyweight. When you turn 35, in a division that relies so much on speed, you're going to get caught in this division. And Bruno Silva, he once was a super dangerous flyweight, a guy that had a tough start to his UFC run, but then he started finishing guys left and right, got a ranking, but he got injured multiple times in that stretch. And when he came back, he didn't look as dangerous, especially when he fought Cody Durden. Cody Durden is a good wrestler, a good grappler, but he was destroying Bruno Silva on the feet before Bruno Silva was able to get that comeback knockout. And then he fights Manel Kape, and that wasn't competitive either. Like, man, he got pieced up the whole fight, and in round 3 got knocked out. It was a bad look. The chin has been cracked. I think Joshua Van is going to fight at the relentless pace that he always does, and I think he's going to break him in round 3. I think he's just going to swarm him. We're talking about a 12-year age advantage here. That's huge. So I think Joshua Van is more durable at this stage of his career. So Joshua Van will keep that winning streak going, the momentum going, and I think he retains his record of the highest significant strike landed per minute in UFC history.
Yeah, he's very active. I expect him to be very active from the start, as you mentioned, and look to put on the pressure and the pace that he was, as you mentioned, as he usually does. Should be good. The fearless against the Bulldog. I'm picking Joshua Van to get the job done. Late round 3 stoppage. I think it's going to be a combination of punches up against the fence. Bruno Silva drops down to his knees and folds. I think it's going to be a fantastic performance for Joshua Van. I look forward to it. 125 pounds. It's always good to see, a very technical 125 pounder go at it. Always good to watch. They're entertaining. They're very active. Should be a good one. 125 pounds. Next one, we've got 205ers, light heavyweights going at it. We've got Azamat Murzakanov versus Brenson Ribeiro. Oscar, straight over to you. Azamat 14-0 against Brenson, who's I believe on maybe a 2-fight winning streak. I believe, 2-fight winning streak. Coming off a big win in his last one against an undefeated guy in DR Nursagoha. However you say that one. Anyway, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. He looks to make it 3 fights against Azamat, who's a big favorite. 14-0, has showcased a lot in his hands in his last few fights. Big power. We saw it against Alonzo Menafield. Knocked him out cold. Does he get another victory using his hands and gets the finish?
This has been a very slow rise for Azamat Murzakanov. I think it was 2022 when the UFC signed him up in Contender Series after a first-round knockout. And the guy has not lost a fight since then, but they refuse to just give him a big fight. I don't know why. This guy beat Dustin Jacoby, one of the best strikers in the division. Brenton Ribeiro is not ranked. In my opinion, none of the guys he beat are impressive. So we have a guy that has 7 losses on his record and has been knocked out several times. You're putting him in with this Russian bull, Azamat Murzakanov, who hits like a truck. I think this is a horrible matchup for Ribeiro. I think he gets knocked out very quickly here. Azamat Murzakanov all day. I think this is an easy fight for him.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you look at Brenton Ribeiro, he's a bit of a track record. Been knocked out a few times inside the UFC. Azamat, being what he is, I think he goes in there, puts the pressure on as well, gets the knockout finish. Inside maybe 1 round, maybe 2 rounds. A good fight, bit of a layup. As you mentioned there, maybe the UFC are taking their time with Azamat. Maybe after this one, they throw him in there against a guy who's in the top 10.
Yeah, I would say he might be ready for top 5 at this point.
Absolutely. Next one, we've got a heavyweight showdown between Sergey Spivak and Waldo Cortez Acosta. A big one, I do believe, and not because of their height or their weight, but a big one in terms of where they're at in the division. Sergey Spivak looks to make the bounce back to winning ways after losing to Jalton Almeida. Waldo Cortez Acosta looking to kind of improve on his winning streak right now after beating Ryan Spann in emphatic fashion after Ryan Spann moved up from 205 pounds. I think Ryan Spann got a very mean um, way of finding out what the difference is between a light heavyweight and a heavyweight that night. He got put out cold. Does he do it against Sergey Spivak, or does Spivak return back to winning ways?
I think Cortez Acosta is very much a product of the current state of the UFC heavyweight division, where a lot of these guys are out of shape, probably should be light heavyweights, and don't necessarily have this crazy knockout power, um, and also have bad cardio. Cortez Acosta has better cardio than most of these guys, which is why he can finish some of them late or just outlast them in these decisions. I won't say that Spivak has this great cardio, but he has something that Cortez Acosta has yet to face in the UFC, and that is good grappling. Spivak, when you put him in there against a guy that can't grapple, he makes him look like an amateur. Even the Derrick Lewis fight, the Tai Tuivasa fight, he grabs these guys, he chokes the life out of them. And Cortez Acosta has not faced that. In my opinion, Spivak should be a minus 300 favorite. I think he takes him down, smashes him, finds the neck, and gets a submission. I'll say round one.
Yeah, a lot of finishes inside. Spivak has. Alma victory against Marcin Tybura in round one. As you mentioned, Derek Lewis in round one. Greg Hardy victory inside round one. This guy, he's very dangerous very early on. Could be a problem for Wilder Cortez Acosta. But I'm actually rooting for Sosa Boy. I think he gets it done. I think he's, as you mentioned, a very different frame at heavyweight. He's quite skinny, quite long. I think he's going to utilize that to his advantage. What he's got to have to do here is make sure, as you mentioned, Sergio Spivak does not get a hold of him, because if he does, it's a wrap, man. It's an absolute wrap. Wilder Cortez Acosta needs to put his hands on him early, like he did with Ryan Spann, and knock him out. He has to finish Sergio Spivak, otherwise it's not going to be a great night for him. And I think he does. I think he catches him quite early. I think he's quite fast on the feet. I expect him to clip Sergio Spivak, the polar bear, very, very, very early. He's only 30 years of age, still got a lot to prove on as well. He's looked to bounce back against a loss against Charlton Almeida, but I'll go with Wilder. I think he gets the job done, and he, as I mentioned, quick on the feet. I expect him to finish him quite early on. If we're talking about finishes, we've got to talk about Chaos Williams against Andreas Gustafsson. Andreas Gustafsson was meant to create history, I believe, with having that the tops what's it called, tag, I want to say, the stitch that he was meant to have on his on his clothing, on the UFC clothing, being the first tops debut, and they were going to sell it on and stuff like that. I don't know whether he still is, but he's facing Chaos Williams, who is known for his power. Might not be technical, but if he does clip you on the chin, he's going to knock you out. Colton Harris found that on the hard way. Does he beat Andreas Gustafsson, who off the Contender Series, that was last year, hasn't been booked since, had a few fights cancelled since then. But, he looked good on Contender Series, hence why he's inside the UFC. He got the knockout win that night. How do you expect this one to go down with Chaos Williams? It should be a good one between two, finishers, both like to strike, should be entertaining on the feet, good matchmaking.
Yeah, I believe Andreas Gustafsson is a good addition to the UFC. He's a brawler. He's a bully in the clinch. And I think Chaos Williams will have a bit of a challenge here, but as you mentioned before, Chaos Williams has that one hitter quitter kind of power that makes a man like Abdul Razak Hassan lay on the floor unconscious for 3 minutes. It's a scary kind of power. I will admit that there's been many spots where I think Chaos is going to knock a guy out. He just can't land that perfect punch, and he gets outpointed. And that is absolutely viable here for Gustafsson. He stays safe, just keeps it in the clinch. We could see him squeak out a decision here, but I just see Gustafsson getting in a wild exchange here, getting clipped and knocked out. This is the kind of fight that Chaos Williams usually wins.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this could be a fantastic one at 170 pounds. Should be a scrappy one on the feet. You talked about Chaos Williams getting the job done. I completely agree with you on that one. We got a good one, 125 pounds in the women's division. We got Ariana Lipsky versus Kong Wang. Kong Wang, notoriously known for beating Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing back in the day. She looks to get the job done minus 500 favorite. She came inside the UFC, put on a fantastic performance, knocked out the Victoria Leonardo very early on, but fell in the hands of Gabrielle Fernandez, where she suffered a rear naked choke loss. But she bounced back against Bruno Brazil. She's got a lot. She's got a big ceiling, hasn't she? I feel like with Kong Wang, if you want to stand and strike with her, it's going to be a bad day in the office. And obviously, Ariane Lipski being known as the queen of violence, I believe, and her elbows. She's gonna have to get this one to the feet and utilize her grappling.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Ariane Lipski usually loses because of good grapplers, but this time around she does have the grappling advantage. And for Wang Kong, it's kind of hard to trust her after she lost so decisively to Gabriela Fernandez, somebody I don't rate super high at this stage. So I think we're going to see a lot of this fight take place on the feet. And I think we're going to see Kong just piece her up most of the fight. Maybe she could knock her out because Priscilla Cachoeira did knock out Ariane Lipski to Silva. So it's possible, but we're probably going to see Kong Wang win a decision here. I just don't think Lipski's wrestling is all that good to where it's going to make a difference here.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I like this one. Next one, we got 145 pound. Should be a fantastic one to Ju Sang Yu against Jeka Saragi. Some of these names are fantastic, very hard to pronounce. If you just tuned in, you're thinking, "Wow, this guy's terrible." This is what I'm like every time. Ju Sang Yu is a minus 500 heavy favorite. Talk to me a bit about that, Oscar. He's 8-0, undefeated, fighting out of South Korea. Um, a lot of him going into this one. I believe he was the one that was found on ZFN Zombie Fight Night. If you did watch looking for a fight, you might recognize it there.
Yeah, just saying you. I think this is kind of the UFC doing Korean Zombie a favor. This is one of his guys. He's a little old for a featherweight at 31 years of age. And Czechoslovakia, goodness gracious, man. This guy lost to Weston Wilson. That's all we have to. Weston Wilson was another guy that the UFC was doing a favor for. They brought in Wonder Boy's guy, who was really bad. My goodness gracious, the guy really should have been cut, but they put him in there with Sergey, and he submits Sergey with a triangle. Horrible look. I think Chu Sang Yu will for sure win this fight. He does have some decent grappling in his back pocket here, but also on the feet, Czechoslovakia leaves a lot of openings. So either or, I think we see Ju Sang Yu win this fight by decision. You cannot trust Czechoslovakia against anybody. If you can't trust him against Weston Wilson, who I thought was the worst fighter on the roster at the time, you can't trust him here.
Yeah, I'm going with you saying 31 years of age. And he talked about, Dana maybe potentially doing a Korean Zoe a little bit of a favor there and signing him up. Good to see a very, very good story. I'm hoping he gets the job done. He's a minus 500 favorite, so a lot of people riding the wave. And as you talked about, Sergey, losing to Weston Wilson, so not a great look for him. The South Korean potentially looking to get the job done. I'm also riding that as well. Next one, we got Quillen Salikid versus Yanao Ash Muse. Another big favourite is the Australian, and I like Quinlan. From what I've seen from him thus far, looked fantastic. Last fight, got the knockout win on his contender series. He got decision victory. I think he's looking fantastic thus far. A lot of finishes outside the UFC. And obviously, he had that finish last time out as well, and also winning performance of the night. I think Quinlan, the Australian, is fantastic. He's very quick. He's very fast. He has power in his hands, as we saw last time out. Starts very, very sharply. If now is not on his game and lets his guard up, or doesn't. What's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't protect himself. Basically, he's going to find himself unconscious very, very quick.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Yanel Moose. After he had that big moment in his debut when he fought Sam Patterson, knocked him out in the first round. Nobody saw that coming. And he fights Trevor Peak, who everybody was loving Trevor Peak at the time. And he kind of exposed the weaknesses in his game, was able to do well on the feet and dominate on the ground. So he's a well-rounded fighter, but I wouldn't say he's an extraordinary fighter. I think Salkild will be able to find the openings here in the pocket and will be able to defend more takedowns than Peak was able to. Peak, we like him, but he's not a super skilled fighter when it comes to grappling. So I think Salkild is the pick here by decision. This is going to be a fun scrap.
Absolutely agree. Looking forward to see how this plays out on the night. Should be a good one, 155 pounds, a well matched one. We got another one as well, 155 pounds. We got Marquel Menderos versus Mark Chinovsky. Mark is making his UFC debut, as you can see there, 0-0. He looks to capitalize on the moment. Markel 2-0 inside the UFC, has that experience in the big lights. He's a moderate favorite, minus 245. Is that justified?
I think it's pretty justified here. I'm not really big on Troyinski here. Uh, he's kind of old for a first time UFC signing. He's not too far from 30, and that shows you that the UFC kind of was looking for anybody. Because usually, if the UFC is going to sign somebody not on contender series, they're looking for some really good guys. Troyinski, sure, he may be undefeated here, but he's not fought the UFC caliber guys that Markel has fought. Markel has had multiple fights where he goes to decision, and he shows that he can have a high volume pace and still just put the beating on these guys. So I think Markel Maderos has better striking gear, and he's going to win a decision. I just don't, I'm just not big on Choyinski whatsoever. Has not gotten the quality win that would make me say this guy is UFC caliber. It doesn't have the hype either. So Markel Maderos, by decision, I think he overwhelms him with the volume.
Yeah, I completely agree. Troyansky, you're not fighting the best competition. Only two fights ago, fought a guy called Reese Archer who was 2-8. Yeah, so yeah, I completely agree with that pick. If you're looking at Markwell 2-0 inside the UFC, has that experience, has win inside the UFC. Beating Austin Hubbard as well. Austin Hubbard, gritty veteran, showcasing some decent skills inside the UFC. So yeah, I'm riding Markel on this one. I completely agree with that pick. Overall, Oscar, what do you rate the card? I think there's some really good underrated fights on there.
I would say this is a straight up 8 out of 10 here. This is a really great offering by the UFC. Sometimes you see guys that are really don't have names on the main card, but everybody on the main card, if you're even a halfway casual UFC fan, you should know these names. Especially Patchy Mix has been one of the guys outside of the UFC making a lot of noise. And Sugar Sean O'Malley, like a couple of years ago, he was you could argue, the top active star in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at that names. Since losing to Juan Archuleta, gone on a fantastic run, beating James Gallagher, Koichi Hiraguchi, Magomedov, who was sort of a fantastic fighter. Looked at out of Russia, beat him, choked him out. Rafael Stotts head kicked him, well, kneed him. Sorry. Sergio Pettis submitted him, and obviously that Magomedov again a decision, a split one. But Magomed, arguably being one of the best 135 pounders outside the UFC as well. So should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Patchy Mix is fantastic. He's great to watch. I feel like we're going to see a big performance from him this weekend, where he gets the victory against Mario Batista. Batista, yeah. I thought of Batista from the WWE for some reason. I don't know why. But same name, it implies. We've got a great card. Kelvin Gastelum, Joe Pyfer, Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland, a fantastic fight. Joshua Van versus Bruno Silva. Oscar, if you're picking your fight tonight, one that the fans can't miss, what is that?
Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. If you want to get your fix for violence, you watch Joshua Van. Nobody is throwing the volume that he does. He has specifically stated that his top goal is to be the most entertaining fighter in the UFC. This is your flyweight Justin Gaethje here, so he's putting his body on the line every time for the fans' entertainment. So you got to tune into this guy. And Bruno Silva has a good reputation for being a finisher at flyweight, which is not super common. So either way, I think we're going to see a lot of action in that fight.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm going to go with Chaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. For me, that one, don't blink. I think it's going to be a very early one. The Ox Fighter versus Bane should be a fantastic one at 170 pounds. It's good to see Gustafsson inside the UFC. Another Swedish with that surname. It feels good.
It sure does. Yeah, and not in the GFL.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see if he can, sort of rise to the occasion and get the job done. Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley, Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Oscar, how would you rate this pay per view out of 10?
Yeah, this is an 8 out of 10 because this is two title fights, and people love to complain about the main event, but still, that's still a very good fight on paper. The mix of the styles, you could see Sugar Sean O'Malley potentially better out there if he's able to rise to the occasion. We could have a great moment. And for Merab Dvalishvili, this could be the beginning of a really great winning streak in 2025. He wants to fight 4 times this year. I think it's feasible. Could it beat Sean O'Malley? That'd be the second win of the year. Then he fights Sandhagen and then Peter John maybe. So or Patchy Nix, your guy. So I think he's going to win 4 championship fights this year and be in a very rare company to do that.
Yeah, completely agree. 316 sets off to be a fantastic, good run for the UFC. You got Usman versus Buckley next week. We got Jamal Hill versus Roundtree in Baku. Should be a fantastic one. And obviously, then we've got a big one between Tapura and Charles Oliveira. We've got a great one for the UFC in the next month or a month or so. Make sure you tune in. We'll be here hopefully next week. Make sure you catch out as we talk about Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley on a UFC fight night. How good is that?
Yeah, that for me would be a good pay per view headliner because Kamaru Usman, we used to see him as the number one pound for pound fighter. I'll pay to watch that guy anytime, but it's a 3 card, and he's fighting Joaquin Buckley, one of the most exciting guys coming up, a potential future champion.
Yeah, Rose Namajunas, that's Miranda Maverick in the coming main event too. That will not disappoint. Should be a great card. Make sure you catch us then next week. Hopefully, we'll see you all then. Thank you very much. For me and Oscar, a very, very goodbye, and we'll catch you very, very soon. Thank you very much. See you later.